Missing, the poster read. Tacked up to the telephone pole, it featured a large photo of a little girl with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a freckled, smiling face. Kirsten pedaled her bike past the telephone pole and the poster. The autumn air cooled her hands on the handlebars, and her mask amplified her breathing. Condensation collected on her face as she breathed in the sweet aroma that rubbered Halloween mask always seemed to have. Leaves flew into the air and clattered back down onto the pavement as her bike whizzed along the street. Her long robe and empty candy bag fluttered behind her over her jeans and sneakers. Kirsten passed another missing poster, this time taped to a mailbox. That girl ruined Halloween. Every year since she was 5, Kirsten adored herself with the scariest costume she could find in a drugstore. All of her friends at the school wanted to be Disney princesses, but Kirsten would accept nothing less than the most ghoulish outfit in the store. Last year she was a glow-in-the-dark skeleton, and the year before that she was the killer from Scream. Her parents let her watch those kinds of movies because it didn't give her nightmares like the rest of the kids in the 4th grade. This year, she was a witch with yellow rotten teeth, a long warty nose, wrinkled gray skin, and long straggly hair. Her mom also bought her an awesome pointy hat. So far, only she and her parents had seen it, since no one was giving out candy this Halloween. Kirsten was outraged. Near the beginning of October, a little girl went missing. The story appeared in all the newspapers and TV news stories. Of course, all the grown-ups freaked. Police cars patrolled almost every public place. No child could walk anywhere without an adult, and all the kids under the age of 18 had to be inside by 5 o'clock. Worst of all, the parents decided not to allow trick-or-treating this year. A stupid kid she didn't even know spoiled Kirsten's favorite holiday. If that girl weren't so dumb, she probably wouldn't even have gone missing. Kirsten, on the other hand, was very mature for her age. At least, that's what her parents and friends said. Therefore, this Halloween, when the sun began to set, she tiptoed outside to her bike, wheeled it out of the garage, and set off on a quest. She would trick-or-treat even if her parents grounded her for a month. Her bike picked up speed as it raced down into the older part of the neighborhood. There were more trees here, and the houses were larger. Unlike Kirsten's cookie-cutter house, she had never been this far into the neighborhood, but she knew all the rich kids lived here. Street lamps shed their light over the low brick walls and sweeping lawns. The houses had multiple chimneys, and a characteristic that perplexed Kirsten. Why would anyone need more than one fireplace? The massive oaks on either side of the road made twilight even darker. The smell of burning wood drifted into Kirsten's nose. All the houses were dark, and not one had a jack-o'-lantern on the front step. These houses weren't passing out candy either. So what? She was undeterred? Kirsten would just look harder. Her legs burned from pedaling so much as she was a good distance away from her house now. She passed a few more houses when a peculiar thing happened. The houses stopped and gave way to the forest. The paved road turned into gravel and then to dirt. Kirsten stopped pedaling and looked into the distance above the trees. She could see the silhouette of many gabled roof rising above the forest. She couldn't make out the details of what must be a mansion. But one thing caught her attention. All the windows glowed from within. This was it. This was the house with the candy. She just knew it. She pushed off the ground and pedaled with the renewed zeal towards the house. Kirsten's bike bumped and skittled as she wound her way through the path. Her breathing got harder and harder as she began to sweat, but she was not to be discouraged. She pedaled up the hill until her legs ached. She turned one final corner, and she was there. The house loomed above her as she got off her bike. Steering the bicycle past the thick metal gate and up the stone path, she gazed at the sights around her and let her bike fall. This house knows how to decorate. Headstones covered in cobwebs dotted the lawn. Plastic skeletons were everywhere in the trees, on the front porch behind the tombstones. The stone building was a black monster towering above Kirsten against the moonlight sky. Chimneys, spires, and even gargoyles made up its outline. Scowling, grinning, and winking jack-o'-lanterns sat in each window. Kirsten had to crane her neck just to see them all. Jackpot! She danced around the headstones and skeletons and giggled. Unable to control herself, she ran up to the stairs to the front porch and almost had her knuckles on the ornate front door. When it creaked ajar, Kirsten lost her balance, pitched forward by her momentum, and tried to steady herself. Balance regained. She held out her bag, cleared her throat, and said, "Trick or treat!" A woman appeared from within the house dressed in a hooded robe. Kirsten felt her mouth drop. The woman was stunning. She bent down, her black hair cascading out of her robe until she was eye level with Kirsten. The woman's eyes twinkled as she looked upon Kirsten. "Yes?" the woman said quietly. Trick or treat," Kirsten managed to say, holding out her candy bag once again. The woman's big gray eyes drifted from Kirsten's face to her bag. A slender hand emerged from the woman's robe and touched the rim of the bag. She returned her gaze to Kirsten. "What do you want?" she said. "You've got to be kidding," thought Kirsten. The spell of the house broken now. Candy, ma'am?" The woman continued to stare at Kirsten. Then she stood upright and raised her hand over Kirsten's bag, palm facing the ceiling. A fountain of colorful plastic-wrapped treats erupted from the woman's hand, spilling over into Kirsten's bag onto the porch. "Whoa!" shouted Kirsten as she dropped to her knees and began scooping up all the candy. She looked up, wide-eyed and smiling, and said, "How are you doing that?" The torrent of candy trickled to a stop, and the woman bent down once more. "It's always like this here," she said. "Here, you can have anything you want. All you do is want it, and it's yours." Kirsten stopped scooping up candy. This wasn't right. She looked up at the woman and said, "Thanks, but I think we're gonna go now." She stood up, her bag now filled to the brim of candy. "Thanks for the candy. That was a neat trick." The woman cocked her head. "Go?" she said. The corners of her mouth tilted upwards. "You can't go." "Why not?" asked Kirsten as she started backing away. "Because you live here now." Kirsten furrowed her brow. What are you? Kirsten tried to back away more, but something was tugging her toward the house. She looked down and was surprised to see the woman's hands gripping her arm. "Hey!" Kirsten wriggled and thrashed. She dropped her bag of candy and scudded across the floorboards and down the steps. "Stop! Let me go!" The woman's eyes and smile grew bigger. Kirsten hadn't noticed how yellow and cracked her teeth were. There was no need to fight, Kirsten. She froze. "How do you know my name?" The woman bent down again and looked into Kirsten's face. "I've known you for a long time. Sooner or later, you all come to me." "Oh God, no!" Grown-ups had warned Kirsten so many times about things like this. Do not go out alone, or call for an adult if you're in trouble, or even scream. Do not take candy from strangers. It's too late for that. She never thought she would meet an actual insane person like this. The woman's grip was like iron, but her face was still soft and smiling. Kirsten tore at her arm, trying to break away from the woman's hand. "No," she screamed through tears. Please, I just want to go home." "But you are home, Kirsten," said the woman, her smile as wide as ever. "Home? What are you talking about?" The woman loosened her grip and looked into Kirsten's eyes. "You live here now," she said. No, I don't!" Kirsten wrenched her hand away from and stumbled down the porch steps. She sprinted all the way to the end of the stone path without looking back and smashed into the gate. Kirsten fumbled backwards and fell from the ground. She looked up. "What?" The gate bore a heavy chain and padlock. No! She got up, began climbing the gate. Surely that crazy woman was running after her. Kirsten turned around, hands clinging to the iron bars. She gasped. The front yard was wild and devoid of decorations. No skeletons dotted the lawn, just tall weeds. Kirsten looked up at the house. No rooms were illuminated. Moonlight reflected off the broken, dusty windows. Dead vines latched onto the crumbling stones. Some of the walls had graffiti on them, and the once decorated front door was now pockmarked and falling off its hinges. She scanned the yard for her bike, but it wasn't there. Kirsten made her way off the gate and walked up to the rotting porch. The stairs leading up to the porch had fallen through from the center to reveal a deep, muddy trench. Kirsten edged towards the hole and looked down. She screamed. The wail echoed into the eaves of the mansion and across the vast forest. Far down below the house, past chunks of broken floorboards and the stubborn rocks. And the subterranean rocks, Kirsten saw the withered body of a little girl. Her shocked face frozen in a look of agony. She couldn't breathe. Kirsten backed away from the chambers and threw off her mask and hat. A gust of wind pushed them along the stone path. The breeze cooled the sweat of her face and ran through her long blonde hair. More tears welled in Kirsten's big blue eyes and spilled over onto her freckled face. Weeping her face and steadying her breathing, Kirsten walked over to the crumbling porch. She hoisted herself onto the railing and swung herself over. Behind the front door was the woman, standing in a dark foyer. Kirsten looked back over the unkempt lawn, past the stone wall and over the trees. Somewhere in the distance was her house, the place where she used to live. She turned back and made her way into the foyer, accepting the woman's hand as they both disappeared into the dark mansion.